Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our panel session today. I know there are a couple of other sessions going on, so it was some tough competition, so really pleased to have you here with us. So over the next half an hour or so, we're going to be discussing what best business practices our panelists have seen from innovative agencies for maximising their return on investment. Like any good session, we'll be sure to give you some takeaways, which you can go and implement tomorrow in your agency, should you so wish. So we're going to get cracking with some introductions. So Adam, I'm going to hand over to you first.
Thanks, Millie. Hi guys, my name's Adam. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and one of the co-founders of Sourcebreaker. Sourcebreaker is a search, match and business development suite powered by artificial intelligence. So what does that actually mean, apart from a load of buzzwords? That means we help recruiters find additional candidates, whether that be across Bullhorn, across the CV databases and across LinkedIn. And then once we've been able to identify candidates, we're able to match them to live business opportunities coming directly from companies' websites, giving you multiple opportunities to place each candidate that you find.
Thank you, Adam. And Neville, over to you.
Hi there. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Neville James. I'm the Sales Director for Cloud Call. And Cloud Call, as some of you may know, integrates as a telephony system that integrates with your CRM. The short version of this is that it enables you to make choices in terms of your business and what you're working with in terms of telephony and integration into your database and CRM system really quickly, easily and seamlessly. What we try to do is to make sure that you save time and make money. That's essentially what all software should do, and that's what we try to do. So that's what Cloud Call does.
Thank you, Neville. And last but certainly not least, over to you, Raymond.
Thank you very much. My name's Raymond Penny. I'm co-founder of Kylo Partners, and Kylo Partners are a combination of a systems integration partner. So we may have been involved in your implementation for Bullhorn or some of the Bullhorn products, but also we have our own products that are part of the Bullhorn marketplace, and we're there to try and give long-term value for the work that we do to our clients, and I'm really looking forward to today's session.
Thank you, Raymond. And my name is Millie Morris. I will be moderating the session for you all today. I'm a partner manager here at Bullhorn, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with what Bullhorn do by now. And I get the really exciting job of looking after some of our awesome partners in the UK and in Ireland as well. And I'm very lucky to be joined by 3 of them today. So we'll get straight into it, and we're going to start off with a topic that's quite close to everyone's hearts and something that's very much front of mind at the moment. We're going to talk about how we attract staff to come and work at our businesses, to come and work at our recruitment agencies, and how technology that we use can really add value to that process. Now, we know it's a competitive landscape for attracting new recruiters, and when they join the team, you as an agency want them to be as productive as possible, as quickly as possible. So I'm going to come to you first here, Neville. What do you see companies doing to attract the best recruiters?
Good question. I think one thing we're seeing questioned more is the culture and flexibility of working policies. If you're a prospective employee, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to change your attitude and how you look at how you employ people. You know, having high tech is always important. But if you're going to attract the best candidates, it needs to be a package. You need to have more than just technology. Looking at one of the people we have worked with, Rossa at Sigma Recruitment, told us what they were doing was hiring people for an agency that gave automatic promotions to people and pay rises if they consistently hit target over a 6-month period. And what that did was differentiate them from other people, for instance, who were given exactly the same package. The cultural differences when we're not in the offices don't make any difference. But that sort of detail on a job description probably led to an increase in applicants, or it definitely did. You know, candidates that he represented actually looked at jobs and took the jobs over others just for that reason. So it is incredibly competitive out there in the market. Culture means more than just beers on a Friday or just going out with everybody else. But what it does mean is having that differentiation, is being able to come up with something that makes the difference. And your tech should be able to do that. It should be able to help you to put those sort of things and make you have those sort of niche things that will make the difference.
And Raymond, same question to you.
Yeah, Kylo have sort of seen tech being used as a differentiator by recruiters when they are trying to hire future staff. When the best consultants have multiple options of who they could go and work for, recruiters like to know that they can make money either more easily because the tech in a business is really good, or that they've got something that's maybe better than they had before, and they certainly don't want to be going backwards if they move from one agency to another. Specifically with an agency in Bristol that during COVID invested a lot of time and money in moving all of their tech forward with the clear goal that they would be able to attract better consultants, and those consultants would be able to onboard more quickly by changing their tech to some of the leading marketplace partners as well as Bullhorn.
And what a great time to be kind of doing all that with your tech stack as well. So that's really only half the battle, isn't it? Kind of getting those recruiters into your agencies. The other half of the battle is really about keeping them there. Adam, have you seen any good examples of how this has been done well?
Yeah, we've worked with a company in Bristol as well. So Bristol's probably the place to be by the sounds of it for companies trying to attract good staff in the recruitment industry at the moment. And they're a technical and sort of construction recruitment agency. And really what they were looking at was the whole holistic journey of the recruiter and them utilizing technology. So how do they get to actually make a placement in the fewest clicks possible, the fewest interactions with different pieces of technology, and actually when they were buying in the tech, Sourcebreaker had been one of them and a few other marketplace partners, they actually looked at how does that enable the recruiters to have a better experience. So their return on investment metric from the technology wasn't pounds, that they'd made from it. It was actually recruiter satisfaction, because their thing was that if they can attract the best people, as we've already spoken about, but actually retain talent, then that's going to help them grow more effectively than it is, constantly having to replace recruiters.
Raymond, I think you've got some really good examples, if you wouldn't mind sharing those as well.
Yeah, we've seen people sort of move on from the automation theme, and I know there's been lots around automation earlier, and they've maybe changed it a little bit, and they've just said what they're trying to do is make things much simpler for the recruiter and for the recruiter's workflow, and for it to be less complicated to follow, but also for it to give better results. So we know that paperwork is really annoying for most recruiters, or certainly all the recruiters I know. And what we've done is they've got clients that have made that easier and more controlled by only making the appropriate paperwork available to the consultant at the right time with the right branding. And at that same time, they've validated the data entry so that they aren't allowed to actually put in invalid data at that time. So it alerts to what's needed, the structure of what's needed, and either pops up a warning or a coaching message. And therefore, it's not a week later when the contract can't be signed or when the finance team are trying to send out an invoice that it pops up. So they've simplified what they've done, but also captured it at the right time when the consultants are most interested. So I think that's really valuable.
Nice, thank you. And Neville, have you got any good examples of how agencies can hold on to their best talent?
I think the best talent, the way, is around automating. We have to make it easier for recruiters. They don't want to spend time getting bogged down with admin, as been mentioned before, because that's absolutely not what they want to do. What they want to do is build relationships. So once again, what we talked about, automation and software should make it easier to call people, should make it easier to log the data, and it should make it a lot easier to record. So if you are sending out a contract, if you are trying to get to somebody and somebody else is not in the office, it should all be in one place. And that's the thing which I think a lot of agents is getting used to the idea, we've got the tech, let's make sure we use it and make sure we use it correctly. And if we can get rid of that being bogged down in admin, then you can focus on the most important thing. And that's what everybody has to get back to doing. It's about relationships, and it's that about one-to-one interaction. And that's what's going to make the difference. The tech should make everything simpler. That's what it should do.
Quite right. And we know when agencies hire recruiters, they really want these recruiters to kind of add value and improve their way of working right from the word go. So Raymond, what can agencies do to help their recruiters do this?
I guess sometimes more tech can feel confusing, but when it's done really well, it feels like magic. At Kylo, we use Bullhorn as our CRM, and I know I shouldn't be surprised in the tech that we've got, but we've set that we get alerts when either new contracts are sent out, and when those contracts are signed for a piece of work, and they come back in, they always go to the same place, and it pops up in the files tab, and I get an alert. And I still really get a buzz out of that every time when the tech works and makes things really simple. And that helps getting consultants to be billing quicker and feel that their job's easy.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Raymond. It's one of those things where I always talk to people about the recruiter's role is so varied, because out of any sales role, which ultimately a recruitment role is, there isn't another one where you actually have to produce your own product. So, you don't go into a normal shop and you've got to actually make the jumper that they then sell in the shop for them to put it onto the shelf. Whereas in recruitment, that's ultimately what a 360 recruiter is doing. So really what you have to think about is all of those different skill sets that recruiter's got, and how can we take tiny elements of it so they can get back to doing those revenue generating activities and speaking to candidates and clients.
Awesome, thank you. So we've spoken a little bit about how technology can add value to your recruiters. We're going to move on now to discuss candidates. So not only is it a competitive landscape for attracting the best recruiters into your agency, but it's also a really difficult time for attracting the right candidates and building those relationships. For anyone who was at Recruitment Agency Expo last week in Birmingham, it was certainly a hot topic there. And COVID was an especially difficult time for a lot of people who were trying to find work. So did anyone see any good examples during this time or otherwise from agencies that have kept their candidates really engaged? And Adam, I'll come back to you first.
Yeah, I have to take that one. So I saw a really great example from a London-based recruiter. And I think it all comes back to something that, is a bit of a theme at the moment, is how transparent they were with their different candidates. So this particular recruiter was really starting to pipeline candidates throughout the COVID pandemic and build up, a workbook of those people that they're talking to, ready for when the market came back, as it is right now, hoping that they're going to be top of the list for answering the phone to this particular recruiter. And the way in which they did this is they actually sent a market report to each of those candidates every single week. And even when there was only, a couple of roles that were maybe, not at the salary level, or, they weren't as attractive roles, they were still sending them. So rather than just going quiet on that candidate and saying nothing, they actually kept them informed. So now they have a weekly cadence with that candidate pipeline that now they're offering them, multiple roles and, at really good salaries. So I think it's key is that transparency that they've been able to offer.
I think that's a good point, Adam. And we saw the same thing. We saw particularly a legal recruiter who did the same with candidates and clients. And during that period where clients maybe had slightly more time, they were more open about what they were doing, what the plans were and what they were looking for. And therefore he got a much deeper connection with both his candidates and his clients, so that now he's able to have a much better network, and he's building on that trust that he was able to gather at the time when it was hard. We've also seen people who've really doubled down on creating candidate communities. Like using their alumni, so people who are working for them already or have worked for them in the past, and offering them either loyalty or referral benefits if they introduce friends or colleagues, which just makes common sense.
Yeah, there's actually a business that we work with in Australia that's really taken that to the next level. And for their like contractors and temporary workers, they actually have like a point system, which gets them things like restaurant vouchers and even discounts on certain things, depending on how many loyalty points they build up with that agency. So I think, yeah, creating that long-term value and that relationship is key to what the best agencies are doing right now.
So something else which has kind of come up in our discussions and something that really needs to be considered, I guess, is also the speed at which you reach these candidates. So it's all, very well setting up a regular cadence, making sure that you stay in contact with them, making sure they're always engaged. Neville, I'm going to come to you here. Have you seen any good examples of how this is done, or got any examples of how it could be done well?
Yeah, when you look at it, it's about something you mentioned. It's about the speed to be able to get to candidates. Having a technology that does that. So a lot of the agencies we speak to and a lot of people we're working with, they look at how they can do it, in whether it's things like broadcast messages, SMS, things like power dialers and click to dial, so you can get to people quickly. Also screen pop-ups when somebody's calling you, having their information there so you can see it, so you can actually talk to them about what you need to talk to them really quickly without having to search around, makes a big difference. And those are the sort of things, that can speed up. And the more, if you speed things up, that means you get more time. You get more time, it means you can speak to more people. You speak to more people, build those relationships. Ultimately, you're going to place more people, so you make more money. And I think it's the features, when you look at any form of software, it's what can it do for you? What sort of automatic call distribution can you get? What sort of inbound screen pop-ups, IVRs, all of these things that everybody knows about. What can they actually do to get the time, that engagement time, quicker to get to speak to people? What we're actually finding out is that people have had all of this, but until COVID hit, until people were working remotely, they didn't realize that they could actually do this and make their job a lot easier, quicker, more efficient and more automated. So I think that's the feedback we're getting, is that in a strange sort of way, it's meant that people have become a lot more efficient, because they have to be. Because as you said right at the very beginning of all of this, it's a hugely competitive landscape, and your points of difference are much, much smaller than they ever were.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's working. Can the tech give you those actionable insights at the right time? There is we talk about a candidate shortage. It's not as if candidates have just disappeared and they're no longer there. It's available quality candidates that want to move is really the shortage. So actually, can your tech identify those people and put them in front of you when they are available and when they are looking? And then, can you get to them quickly?
Yeah.
Great stuff. So now we're going to move on to discuss customer engagement and how agencies can build some really strong relationships with their clients. When we were preparing for this session, one phrase which was mentioned a few times was how agencies can minimize the boring, which I really liked. Raymond, can you talk a little bit about what we meant when we were talking about minimizing the boring and how agencies can action this?
Yeah, I think minimizing the boring is really a representation of if you can make it, using tech, the tech cleverer, such that things that used to be, maybe could become mistakes, can be reduced. So we've seen clients themselves trying to make themselves easier to work with for their clients with simple things like just improving their internal accuracy. A great example might be where consultants need to touch things more than once, whether they're either calculating the rate or they need to remember things about a particular client or a framework that they might be on that requires a particular piece of compliance, and they need to remember it. But as Adam said earlier, the consultants are working with multiple clients. How can they remember all of these things? So as an example, one of the things we've done is we've simplified that process by cutting back on the difficult calculations and using things that maybe some people have heard of, a thing called custom objects. Custom objects are a feature that Bullhorn has that can be added as extra fields on different records. So a great example is where we've added some custom objects to a client record. And the client record custom object carries information about the important parts that need to be included in order for the candidate to be successfully onboarded, or for the rates to be agreed, maybe because they've got a framework relationship. And these custom objects, when a job gets added to that company, in the background, that information is carried over onto the job. And as the job gets filled, that information again gets carried across onto the placement record in the background using bespoke code. And when that paperwork is therefore created, the clauses are right, the required request to the candidate for what they need to fill in as part of their onboarding is also correct. And it feels like magic when it happens. And it's really boring for consultants when they have to do it. Oh, how do I work out what the overtime rate is when we've got a special arrangement and they get a discount if it's a Saturday? Who remembers that stuff? How do you remember how to do it? But the tech is really good at doing that over and over and making sure that the boring parts the consultants got wrong, that then frustrated the contract team or the finance team, or ended up with candidates being lost because they took longer to be onboarded. That stuff can just go away, and it just happens, and it can be done on repeat, and it can be done so that your client remembers you as the people who are easy to work with because you don't make mistakes.
Thanks, Raymond. And Neville, same question to you. Have you got any examples of how agencies can really improve their customer engagement?
Yeah, I think that going back to the whole theme of minimizing and boring, and that's what we've got to keep on continuing thinking about. You know, what can be automated? You know, having the right tech stack we keep talking about is great, but there are certain fundamentals you have to get right. It's important that we use what we've got. We understand how to get the best ROI out of it from each piece of tech. There's a couple of bits of tech that we use and that a lot of our agencies, which is real-time dashboards. Things that where they can build and create their own dashboards to see what their consultants are doing, see how they're working, see how time efficient there are, analytics that are real time, so you can have the information that you need, so you can make really quick decisions around training, you know, whether there are things like missed calls, call distribution, call duration, all of those sort of things that first of all can help when you have a dashboard to see what's going on really quickly. I think secondly, from that, what we've seen as well is having things like supervisor panels. We're talking about the most important thing here is about the recruiter, being able to train them remotely, being able to see what they're doing remotely, being able to work and help remotely, where you can get management teams that they can just monitor, interact, and be able to talk to people so they can make sure that they're working to their optimum levels. I think going back, the most important tool that we've got isn't the tech, it's how you use the tech, but it's also the people around it, and to make sure that they're set up for success, they've got the right training, you're empowering them to use it effectively. So they're not scared of what's around them, and they can see it as an asset rather than something that's going to be prohibitive. Get rid of the boring means using that automation and being able to use those things in front of you that you've already got.
Thank you. So keeping clients engaged, potentially it's something that agencies haven't thought too much about, maybe before the pandemic, but that might have changed quite drastically over the last sort of 2 years it's nearly been now. And that engagement might look very different to how it once was. Adam, have you got some good examples of this that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, of course. So some great sort of best practice that we teach people from Sourcebreaker is all around tracking what's actually going on in that business. So I think a lot of recruiters feel that they ask a lot of questions about their hiring plans and like what they're actually recruiting for, but actually, do they actually get to the fundamentals of what is going on within that business? What is the strategy? What is the direction? You know, have they got any particular events that are happening? So we get our users and businesses that we work with to really track like news articles about the particular businesses, so they can see, you know, are they launching in any new places? Are they opening new offices? You know, what's actually going on within that company, so that they can, you know, have really informed conversations with the hiring managers about things that are actually going to be affecting them. because I think as soon as you start to break beyond just talking about recruitment and what they're hiring for, and actually talking about their challenges and how a recruiter can solve those and help them with them, that's when a pure relationship is formed, rather than just a supplier of people. So that's one great example. The other one is, we actually have funding data within our platform, so people can see, when people have taken funding rounds, which with the market at the moment and this, $3 trillion worth of dry powder that the PE companies are sat on, from the event I was at last week, there's more and more funded companies than ever. And one client in particular, what they actually did is they send handwritten notes to all of the C-suite at their clients whenever there was a funding round, really to cement, again, that sort of personable relationship and partnership rather than just being a supplier.
I love that. I love that example. So Adam, I'm going to stick with you here actually, because I really like that example, and kind of flipping that on its head. If agencies are doing this to keep their clients engaged, what are they getting back? What's their return on investment on doing stuff like that?
Well, I think that's really the opportunity for recruiters right now. So, as they talk about the pyramid of, are recruiters ahead of estate agents or car salesmen on that pyramid of people that everyone doesn't want to talk to when they phone you up. I can say that because I was one. But I think now recruiters are in demand. Every company is hiring. People want recruiters to be giving them the very best talent. So actually, it's a really good opportunity for those businesses to look at that partnership and say, okay, right, well, if we're giving you all these additional services, if we're giving you salary information, if we're giving you market reports, we're giving you, a lot of information around what's happening within the industry, what are we getting back for it? And at a time where, talent is in such demand, I think the most affected agencies are the ones who are looking at retained models, they're looking at statements of work, looking to really say, well, okay, Mr. Client, if you're wanting all of this additional service from us, what are you willing to give us in return? Because as much as the market's super hot right now, it will tail off. It's always going to. So actually, recruiters who are going to be successful for the next 2, 3, 4 years, if they can forward plan while they're in demand now to secure that partnership and that more retained, that more service level offering, I think they're going to be the ones who actually get, the most value out of this boom that we're in right now.
Great, thank you. So as we're kind of coming into the last few minutes of our session, at the beginning, I did promise everyone that we would have some actionable takeaways that they can go and implement. So what I'd love to do, just to kind of finish off before a couple of questions, is just go back to each of you. And if you could only choose kind of one top tip or piece of advice for everyone on the session today, what would that be? So Raymond, I'll come to you first.
Well, I guess I've got to say it. Use the tech you've got to make yourself easy to work for and work with. And where we've seen that best, and I was on a session where Sarah from Cherry was speaking. I think she's somebody who gives this a good example. If you think like the people who are going to have to interact with it, so whether that's your consultants or your clients or your candidates, if you can put yourself in their shoes and continue to make the interaction simpler and simpler with fewer steps, then the better you're using your technology.
Thank you, Raymond. And Neville?
I think I would echo that as well. Use what you've got. If you've got it there, the technology that works for you, make sure you utilize it. Transparency, make sure it's very clear, very straightforward. If you're going to communicate with people, make sure they know, you know what you're communicating about. And fundamentally, we're in a communication business. That's what we are. And we need to make sure that's front of mind and that stays there. So I would always say transparency, communication, utilize what you've already got in terms of tech.
Thank you, Neville. And Adam?
I think my key takeaway is, remember that there is one most important tool within a recruitment agency, and that's actually the recruiter themselves. So when you're thinking about tech, when you're thinking about how you engage with clients, if they're trained correctly, they've got the right solutions, that's going to make you effective as a business. So actually make sure that the recruiter is front of center of everything that you do.
Thank you very much. So we do have a couple of minutes left. So luckily we have some questions. Raymond, I'm going to hand this first one over to you. So how difficult is it to build special workflows for customers or clients to make consultants' lives easier? And I won't try saying that 3 times quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of C's in there. I think that anything is possible, but sometimes it's always good to check what is it the key thing you're trying to achieve. So if you have enough money and enough time, the technology can do anything. But what we see and what we try and engage with clients to do is maybe do some small things that give a lot of value back, because building in maybe some custom validations or custom pieces of work may take a few days to build, but they save time for years and years. And therefore, I think that it's worthwhile engaging with a business analyst or someone who understands your team, but also, as the other panel members have said, speaking to the consultants and trying to work out what are the things that, if you could do one thing better, what would it be? And engaging on that, and therefore creating maybe things that are special to your business to save time for years to come.
Thank you, Raymond. And one for you here, Adam, which I'm very interested in the answer to as well, actually. Do you see candidate availability getting better or worse over the next 6 months?
Oh, wow. They say you should never make a prediction because you're always going to be wrong, isn't the phrase? I think it's, especially in the next 3 months, it's going to get a lot harder. The traditional recruitment market heading into Christmas, always no one wants to move just before Christmas for it. So in the very short term, I see it getting worse. And I think the key thing is it depends. And it's very sit on the fence answer, isn't it? It depends on the client that you're recruiting for, because I think people now have a different want and need from the business that they're going to work for. So, it was always that pay was the most important thing. Whereas now I think it's a balanced benefits that they're looking for within their roles. So I think people are going to struggle for candidate availability, especially the ones who, expect everybody in the office 5 days a week. There's no working from home, there's no flexibility, there's no health benefits, that type of thing. So I think, for the next probably 6 to 9 months, we're in for, a tough time for candidate availability.
Maybe I could just add to that. It's been interesting today because it's my first time in London where I've got on the train and I've come into London for a long time. And I was having a conversation with getting a cup of tea this morning and asked how busy they were. And the lady said they were about 50%. And my train had 3 less carriages than normal. So I think we're progressing back. And I think candidate availability is going to sort of come and flow, or ebb and flow, as we go through, as people find either what's normal or try to go back to normal and find they do or don't like it. So I think that we're going to see candidates become available, candidates stop becoming available, skills change, and people respond to it in different ways. I think it's going to be a really important time to stay tight to the candidate market and try and use what you can see from your database, from the tech you've got, to try and catch the waves as they change.
Thank you. And one final question, going to give this one back to you, Adam, another tip request. So if you had one tip on how to attract recruiters to a business, what would it be?
One tip. So I think one of the things that a lot of agencies don't do, or I haven't seen them do as much, is really actually market themselves. So I think you speak to so many recruitment agencies and they have incredible benefits. There's the traditional stuff like lunch clubs, there's holidays, there's there's all that stuff. But how many recruiters' websites do you actually go on where there's a really detailed work for us page? And actually the recruiters that are going to be able to attract the best talent, I'd be starting to think about how can you market your actual recruitment agency as somewhere great to work. So there's a few good examples of clients that I know. People like Austin Fraser do this really nicely, is like videos of what it's like to work for them, videos around the office. So I'd be looking at how can you actually market yourselves as a place to work. Having a list of benefits is one thing, but actually marketing it to people is a different thing.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, I definitely agree with that, because the lots of recruitment companies you see, that differentiator in terms of what you can do, what you've got in the workplace, the whole videos of showing how it is to work there, that flexibility that you mentioned, Raymond, before, you know, having that flexibility of work days and lunches and what you do, all of that to make it a nice, warm environment. Even the small thing of being where I am now at Clerkle, it's the same thing. We're having to do what recruiters are having to do. We want people to work for us. We have to show the differences. So I'd really, absolutely, Adam's point, just hammer that home. Show who you are, what you do, and why somebody should come and work for you.
Can I maybe interrupt and answer a different question?
Sure.
And look after the people you've got and ensure that you're giving the people that you've got, if you value them, that they know you value them, and have working with them either as personal development plans or really trying to understand what it is that makes them tick and the important things to them, because I think there's going to be lots of difference. And if you can narrow down the number of people who move on, because people are going to be trying to attract your recruiters to their business. So getting close to the people you've got, and if you value people, make sure that they know it and work with them for something that's important to them personally, because I think if you connect with them in a business and connect with them on a purpose, then they'll stay with you for a long time, and they'll be really great advocates for passing that on to other people they speak to during the recruitment process.
I think that personal development point is super important, especially a lot of people who are either coming into the market now or in that sort of junior end of the recruiter market lost a lot of development during COVID. So a lot of people were furloughed, or a lot of people didn't get into work straight after university. And what they're looking for right now, either in a business or joining a business, is how do they almost catch up? How can they, get that year that was lost for them and that not affect, the speed of their career? So yeah, thinking about personal development plans, what are the progression? And again, actually advertising that, because I know so many great recruitment businesses that have incredible training, incredible development, but are they actually using that in their hiring material? Or are they just, as I said, talking about those core things that everybody talks about?
Yeah, and there's probably a piece of tech that sometimes gets overlooked, and that's your internal learning management system. And now, whether that's how you onboard people or where people can go to look to learn what they should do next, or just remind themselves, is a piece of tech that sometimes sits in an awkward place, but really shouldn't be overlooked as something that will not only help people on board quickly, become productive quickly, as we've been speaking about, but also feel part of the entire organization and have somewhere comfortable to go to look things up when they maybe don't like to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you. A lot of very good advice there from you all. So thank you very much. And the perfect way to finish our session, nearly on time, a couple of minutes early. So thank you so much for everyone who joined our session. A huge thank you, Raymond, Neville and Adam, for joining the panel today and sharing those examples and tips. I think that was really useful. I believe we've got a networking break next, so you've all got time to go and get yourself a refreshment. If you wanted to hear any more from my panelists or connect with them, please feel free to do so on Swapcard. We've got one session left of the day. I hope you really enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.